What if end of life planning is not about death at all? What if it's about testing the limits of life to see how much bigger and how much cooler your life can be? Welcome to the Sacred Moments Podcast, a space to normalize conversations around mortality, grief, love legacy, and end of life planning. I'm Donna Marie, celebrant, soul doula, end of life planner, and love legacy guide. Before we get the conversation started, please subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell so that you're notified when new episodes are available, and share your comments. Also, remember to like our content and to share our content. But as it relates to sharing your comments, I want to hear from you. Our community of whole lifers want to hear from you because we understand that you live your best life by embracing your whole life. I recently viewed an interview on Mel Robbins's podcast. It was a powerful interview with Mark Rober. He's a former NASA engineer and a popular science educator with over 71 million subscribers on YouTube. He talked about the Mario effect. And yes, it's from the Mario game, Super Mario. And the Mario effect is where people learn from their failures by learning to conquer the game and to save the princess. I've played that game before, and I understand this concept very well based on his description. In the Super Mario game, I would get frustrated, yes, but I would always start again. And so he talked about treating life as a series of experiments instead of tests and failing without shame. He talked about presence over performance and happiness beyond achievement. He said that we overestimate the negative impact of failure and underestimate our ability to handle it. He said that failure isn't proof that you're doing life wrong. It's part of learning. And when failure feels safe, people are more willing to try, reflect, and keep going. And so I thought about end of life planning when I listened to this interview and ways in which end of life planning aligns with what I learned. I want to say that as I'm speaking of death, I'm talking about natural death, not violent, tragic death. That's a whole different topic. So, next to birth, death is one of the most profound experiences, and we should talk about it, prepare for it, and use it to teach us about how to live. We can create our end of life plan and update and discuss it regularly in order to live wholeheartedly. When we create our end of life plan, we update it and we discuss it regularly. And that can help us to live wholehearted lives, peaceful lives that end well, even when there's a life-threatening condition or when there are aches and pains from growing old. Your end of life plan can be a life review and a life preview. And no one ever, I say never ever, regretted planning, even when the plan is incomplete. One day you and I will die, and end of life planning is that, preparing for your end of life in advance, preparing for your final day and after your final days. It's organizing paperwork, documenting and communicating your wishes regarding your health care and your treatment, your finances, your property or your estate. It's to ensure that your values and your beliefs are honored. End of life planning is also a gift. It's a gift first and foremost to yourself, and it's a gift to others. And because your end of life plan is a living document, it's a great exercise that stretches you to think bigger about your life. The planning stretches you to think bigger about how to live life and how to leave life. Through your planning, your questions become more powerful. You think more about how to leave the world a better place for the people you love, for your community, and even the world. You begin to record memories. You document your life stories. You might write a book. I'm in the process of updating my family photo album, designing it in a way to tell the story we actually have lived. The story I've lived is bigger than I ever imagined, and I want my photo album to reflect that story. End of life planning helps to ease pain, unnecessary burden, and it makes it possible for the most peaceful ending and afterlife because when your physical body dies, your energy continues to live. Your stuff continues to live. Your footprint continues to live on. And so end of life planning is a guide to help someone manage your afterlife as well. And believe me, I'm not saying that we won't experience grief or pain from the loss. When you love someone, It is going to hurt when they're no longer here. If you're a child and you lose a parent, that is tragic. Death can be tragic, even when it's a natural death. And I'm not saying that we won't feel the impacts of that loss or that tragedy. I am saying, and putting a twist on what Mark shared, that we underestimate our ability to handle failure or death. We underestimate our ability to handle death. I wanted to say that again. I believe there's wisdom in death. There are so many stories of how people's lives have changed positively because of an experience with death. I also believe that death is a teacher. And when we are willing to face it and sit down with death, there's so much we can learn. Again, I'm not saying it won't hurt, and I'm not trying to downplay death, but we underestimate our ability to handle it because we overestimate the pain of facing death, and we don't plan. End of life planning won't make you die, just like talking about sex won't make me pregnant, right? Or you. End of life planning is an intentional process of thinking about how you want to live, be cared for, and be remembered, especially if you become seriously ill or unable to speak for yourself. It's so important to have conversations with people in your circle of support, your circle of love that you can rely on, that you can trust. So it's not about dying, it's about living with clarity, with dignity, with peace, and it's about living in the moment right now. In society, we make death sounds like there's something wrong with the individual. There's nothing wrong if a person dies naturally, if they're not cured from a life-threatening disease. But when we talk about death, it's as if it's a failure. There's been a failure in the treatment, a failure in a person's health. The person's not strong enough or doesn't believe, doesn't have the faith enough to live. They lost hope. So death happened because we gave up or because of something other than it's a natural process of life, right? In our society, we act like death and aging are optional. And we're always looking for ways to live longer and ignore the fact that we're going to die one day. Viewing end of life planning or our whole life plan as an experiment opens up conversation, and that conversation can lead to more curiosity. That curiosity and conversation can replace fear with peace of mind, courage, and eliminate shame. You can actually begin to feel safe as you express your desires and wishes and your values and your beliefs. You can learn to live more whole, a life of wholeness. One of my favorite words is freedom, my anchor word, freedom. You can live a life of more freedom, more peace, and it opens you up to vulnerability and empathy and engagement and encouragement. And talking about your end of life plan has a ripple effect. So you get to help and impact other lives in a positive way. So, number one was life is an experiment, and so is end of life planning. Number two, what is end of life planning? And number three, gratitude comes from imagining loss. I loved this part of the conversation between Mel Robbins and Mark Rober. Gratitude comes from imagining loss. So once you begin thinking about your end of life plan, your legacy, the care you're choosing for others, you gain gratitude. Because even though death results in loss, the loss without a life review or a life preview is no longer a heavy weight. You begin to consider more and more about who matters. First and foremost, you matter. So this plan supports you. And then who else other than you matter? What matters? And what needs your attention right now? You begin to realize that your legacy is lived until the day of your final breath and beyond. Legacy is not just about achievement and material wealth, and nor is end of life planning. When we remember that one day we will die, happiness shifts. It becomes presence, connection, meaning, love, and loving. When you remember that one day you will die, you start living with more clarity. Presence becomes the real measure of a good life. Mortality awareness actually clarifies happiness. And at the end of life, what remains are your relationships, the words that you've shared, your time, your presence, your energy. That's what people will remember. And that's the real impact we have for generations and generations to come. I want to read something quickly from my cell phone. It's from the Buddhist tradition in Bhutanese culture. They believe that if you think about death 5 times a day in a structured way, whether it's through journaling, meditation, whatever it is you're doing, thinking about death 5 times a day helps you to gain more focus. It increases your happiness, more acceptance for life, appreciation for life. It helps you to let go of trivialities and focus on what really matters. So I think that's a very interesting concept, and I wanted to share that with you. I also want to hear from you, whole lifers. Please subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell, and share your comments. Which part of this message resonated with you the most? What small experiment are you willing to try? Is it your end of life plan? Let's keep the conversation going. And if you subscribe to our website at sacredmoments.life, you can receive a free end of life checklist to help you get started or to help you with updating your end of life plan or your personal whole life plan. I think I like that name much better. And we can talk more about your personal whole life plan. So remember, we live our best life by embracing our whole life. Namaste.